Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking Missouri's compulsory school attendance laws and, well, turning them into a clear, actionable roadmap for your family. Let's face it, navigating legal statutes can feel like deciphering an ancient code. But we're going to break all that jargon down into simple, structured takeaways. Whether you're a first-time parent, maybe considering a switch to homeschooling, or mapping out your teenager's path to graduation, understanding these baseline rules is absolutely essential.
All right, let's kick things off by challenging a super common assumption. If I went out and asked 100 parents when their kids legally have to start school, I bet almost all of them would say kindergarten, obviously. We just treat kindergarten as this universal, non-negotiable starting line. But is it actually legally required under Missouri law?
The surprising answer? No way. It's actually not. In Missouri, your statutory compulsory attendance duty, your actual legal obligation, doesn't officially kick in until the child reaches the age of 7. I know, right? That's a massive distinction. Don't get me wrong, pre-K and kindergarten are incredibly valuable choices for families, but strictly speaking under the law, they are absolutely not the same thing as compulsory attendance.
Section 1. When does school begin? Navigating the early years.
Now here's where we get into a really critical nuance. If your 5 or 6-year-old simply isn't enrolled in public school, the state requires absolutely nothing from you attendance-wise. You're completely in the clear. But the very second you choose to enroll them in a public school, boom, you've activated those attendance rules. You have to ensure they show up regularly. You literally can't just treat public kindergarten like a drop-in daycare just because they're under 7. But, quick aside, the law does give you a backdoor. If you realize public school just isn't working out for your little one, you can formally request in writing to drop them from the roll. Do that, and you turn that attendance requirement right back off.
Moving on to Section 2, Flexible Paths to Compliance, your educational options. So, once your kiddo actually hits those core compulsory years, Section 167.031 of the Missouri statutes reveals, honestly, an incredible amount of flexibility. The state isn't just demanding everyone sit in a traditional public school classroom. You've got options: public school, private school, parish school, homeschool, or an FPE program. But wait, here's the absolute most fascinating part of this law. It explicitly allows families to mix and match. You can literally string together full-time equivalent attendance across a combination of different schools, even all in a single day. There's no statutory cap on how many approved schools a student can attend daily. For families looking to build a hybrid or part-time setup, that is a huge, huge win.
But here's the catch, and it's an important one. The state gives you total freedom to choose the format, right? But they are completely firm in their expectation. You get to pick the path, sure, but once you pick it, you've got to walk it consistently. This law isn't just an exercise in filing enrollment paperwork, it's about proving the student is actually participating in their education day in and day out.
Which brings us to Section 3, the legal responsibility. Who is actually accountable?
Well, with clear expectations comes some pretty serious accountability, and it's vital to know exactly who the state is pointing the finger at when things go wrong. Spoiler alert, the legal burden doesn't fall on the 7-year-old or even the 15-year-old. It falls squarely on the parent, the guardian, or whoever currently has custody. You are the one legally on the hook to ensure your child goes to their approved academic program.
And guys, this really underscores the heavy stakes of truancy. Failing to ensure your kid regularly goes to school isn't just some minor administrative hiccup where you get a mildly polite letter sent home. No, it's actually a criminal offense in Missouri. A Class C misdemeanor, to be exact. If a child just stops showing up, schools and districts can and will escalate the matter. They can report it to the Department of Social Services, the Children's Division, or literally straight to the county prosecutor's office. The state built this enforcement structure to prove one thing: they are not messing around when it comes to educational neglect.
All right, let's look at the other end of the timeline in Section 4, exceptions and leaving early, the upper age limits.
Obviously, you aren't legally required to be a student forever, but Missouri doesn't actually use a single one-size-fits-all end date. Generally speaking, a student has to keep up with compulsory attendance until they hit the specific age set by their local district. And for the vast majority of places across Missouri, that magic number is 17 years old, meaning for most students, that legal obligation is locked in right up until they blow out the candles on their 17th birthday.
However, there is a very specific credit-based exception to that age rule. A student might actually be exempt from the attendance law before turning 17 if and only if they have successfully knocked out 16 credits toward high school graduation. So it's kind of an off-ramp for students who've kept their heads down, stayed on track academically, and hit that specific credit milestone early.
So, aside from aging out or hitting that 16 credit mark, are there any other ways out? Well,
Yes, but they are incredibly narrow. We're talking super fact-specific exceptions. You definitely can't just pull your teenager out of school because they aren't really enjoying it. If a child has a documented mental or physical incapacity, they can be excused, but you need official approval from the superintendent or chief school officer. What if a student is between 14 and 17 and has a legal job? They can be excused from full-time attendance, but again, this strictly requires a green light from the public school superintendent or a court. And finally, there's a special option program for kids who are at least 17 and at risk of dropping out altogether. The big takeaway here: documentation and direct approval. These aren't just loopholes you can casually slip through, they are tightly managed off-ramps.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, navigating your next transition and moving forward into 2026.
You know, getting a handle on these foundational laws is absolutely critical whenever your family is staring down a major transition. Maybe you're prepping for first grade, taking the leap into homeschooling, moving to a brand new district, or figuring out a path for a teen eager to enter the workforce. But as you map all this out, keep this giant caveat from the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in mind. Remember how we talked about state law permitting those awesome, flexible hybrid arrangements? Well, the practical reality of making that work, stuff like bus routes, bell schedules, and classroom availability, that ultimately falls to the policies of your local school board. Local boards are totally allowed to adopt part-time attendance policies, but they are absolutely not required to bend their schedules to accommodate your specific hybrid plan. In short, what's legally permissible isn't always practically guaranteed by your local district.
So, knowing all of this, is your family prepared for the road ahead? Missouri definitely gives us a fantastic baseline of educational flexibility, but it leaves a ton of room for local administration and, as we saw, pretty strict enforcement. As you look toward the coming school years, I highly encourage you to proactively verify your specific plans directly with your local district or the State Department. Honestly, don't just assume your interpretation of the law matches their day-to-day operations. By asking the right questions early, you can avoid attendance headaches, dodge legal trouble, and most importantly, keep your student totally thriving. So I'll leave you with this. What steps will you take today to make sure your child's educational setup is legally sound and perfectly tailored to them?